something that it's actually an interesting topic of car reliability. And what does it actually mean for your car to be reliable? Because there is this misconception of what reliability actually is. So there are some people that think that, well, reliability is. I mean, there is different definitions, I should say. For me, reliability in a vehicle is honestly, if you can get in it, start it, and drive it every time, even if it takes you a couple of attempts, but it'll do it every time, to me, that's reliable. If a car will never let you down, that's reliable. Also, but it doesn't mean that, you don't have to, like, tinker on it, right? Because that's the one thing of reliability sometimes means that you have to tinker a little bit, and that's okay. But also, like, I like that aspect, and it makes me feel one with my car more, as opposed to getting in a brand new car and just, you know, being a mindless drone going down the road. Like, my cars give me, a feel for my passion and the like, right? And that's this whole thing, and like, because there's this guy that he's my troll in one of the groups that I'm part of. It's one of the local Mustang groups actually, and he happens to drive a Mustang Mach-E, which I have major problems with the Mach-E, but that's fine. That's neither here nor there. I've heard it's actually a decent vehicle, and it's one of those things. But a lot of people hate on the Mach-E too. It's not just me. It's mostly because Ford put that name on an SUV, especially an electric SUV, right? And that's the problem because it's a Ford Mustang Mach-E. But like, the interesting part is because I have this guy and he comments on like almost every single one of my posts in this group, and to be honest, I find it hilarious because it's an obsession, an absolute obsession. And to be honest, other people that I've asked, they agree with me that it is. And I truthfully find it so funny. He'll deny it, but if you comment on all my posts and stuff, it still makes you a fan. Hi! But, yeah, so actually, let's delve into, like, reliability in cars. And to be honest, it is kind of surprising to see like just how many new cars tend to fail. You know, gone are the days, it seems like, of cars being just absolutely pretty much bulletproof. My Mustang's not automatic. You know, my Mustang hasn't been automatic since last winter. Actually, I completed a swap in January, so. But it's outside. And as for the other one, it's outside too, but it's not a Mustang, it's a Capri. So, which that is an automatic, and if you want to get technical, I suppose you can call the Capri a Mustang, but it's not technically a Mustang. You know? Oh, yeah, it's outside. The burnout was with the automatic, but it's no longer an automatic, it's a manual now. So, I swapped it to a T5 because after that burnout, it did actually hurt the transmission, but that was my own fault. You can actually hear in the video when I'm doing the burnout that about a minute into it or so, the RPM starts to get higher, and then that was heat getting to the torque converter. Well, right now, the car is not going to be able to do a burnout at the moment. Just because, like, the big tires on the back of it, like, those big tires are not conducive to do that burnout. It just does not make enough power to do that. I have 275 6015s on the back of it right now. And they just look killer, and to be honest, they give me better fuel economy because they're really tall. They're like a 28-inch tall tire. compared to the 25.4. Um, the Capri, I don't know if it will. It might. Like, the only way I'd have to manipulate that car to do a burnout. And also, I'm not doing a burnout with the tires it has right now. I don't do burnouts with my nice tires. I always have shitty tires to do that with, and I don't have any at the moment. So, but like I told the other guy that was always comments this stuff, is if you want me to do something that's going to cost me money, you have to give me money so I can afford to do it. That's how that goes. Um, that's just one of these things, and like, and you know, and like doing a burnout. Both of them have exhausts on them. The Mustang has a dual exhaust with that is all custom piping out the back, but it has the stock manifold, while the Capri just has just a muffler on it and an emissions delete. See, and I mean, and the one thing is, I just don't have any tires at the moment to do that with, because I'm not gonna smoke my nice condition tires at the moment. Like, I have tires on the front of my like on the front of my Mustang that I could technically burn off, but the only problem is I'd have to have tires to replace those with, which I just currently don't. It's just one of those things. But, and I mean, hearing them, it is a little late to try and start them. Like, it is 11 o'clock here. Otherwise, I would. I just, not that they're particularly loud, but they're loud enough to where, you know, my neighbor does not like me starting it up this late. So, unless if I, like, have to and drive somewhere. So, that's one of those things. But trying to get back to what I was talking about before, though, is reliability in vehicles, especially brand new vehicles. And there is a surprising amount of failures in new vehicles. Whether it is, you know, like the transfer cases blowing up, or whether it is the you know, engines blowing up, or the transmission, or whatever else. Well, and to be honest, I don't, like I just said, I don't have tires to replace them with, is the problem, right? And a brand new set of tires is going to cost me quite a bit of money, you know? Like, I don't want to put, like, Cooper Cobras on there, and it would cost me, if I was able to find a good set of them that weren't, that, like, even used, it's still going to cost me probably $200 or $300. Like, that's the problem. And I don't have a twin turbo on the cars, and no. Like, the one thing is, I do want to turbo my Mustang, however, it's not going to be a twin turbo, and it's just going to be a cheap little thing. Like, you're saying all this stuff like I have a bunch of money. I don't. I'm broke. I'm flat-ass broke. I live paycheck to paycheck via YouTube or my job, which is a mobile dyno service. Oh, well, you didn't mention that before. You have twin turbos? That's cool. Like, and it's one of those things. Like, I want to turbo my car. I have the turbo. A friend of mine was going to build me a turbo header, but he hasn't yet. He hasn't even started. And that was like 2 months ago, I think, that we kind of talked about it. But it's one of these things where it's not necessarily a rush or anything, because pretty soon I'll be parking that car anyways for the winter time. So, you know, but it's one of those things. Because, yeah, like, I don't know how much of my stuff you've watched, because I know you came in, I guess, on the Burnout video. And because, like, my 81 Mustang has had quite a few upgrades. So the rear end is an 88 with 355s. The transmission is a T5 out of an 83. It's got dual exhaust on it with Flow Pro mufflers on it. It's got a 2-barrel carb conversion that I'm actually going to be swapping probably next week. I'm meant to do it this week, but it's just been too goddamn hot, and it's still going to continue to be hot. So I'm just going to say screw it and leave that until next week, and that's fine. I'm going to go to a Holly 2-barrel. It's only going to be 267 CFM, but that's what I have, so that's what I'm going with. And, it's perfect for my application, though, because it's not too much carburation, so for a stock engine, and it's only through an adapter that it's on there, because otherwise it'd be a 1-barrel like my Capri. But that's one of those things. I don't even know what it would actually, what I would consider to even do a burnout, and it wouldn't be right now anyways. It would be in the future, like a future video, to do that. And, the only car that's... Because I don't even know if the Capri is capable of doing the burnout. Genuinely, I don't know. Because with the 273 rear gear, I highly doubt it. And the Mustang, I haven't mastered being able to do a burnout with a stick yet. Because I've tried. Just to see if I could do it. And no luck yet. So, when I had smaller tires on it, when I had my winter tires, as an example, on it for a while, they're much smaller and easier to spin, but when I launched that thing, it's kind of funny, because with those small tires, it actually gets axle hop, which I didn't think I made enough power to axle hop, but there's that. But anyways, trying to get back to what I was talking about before. So, yeah, reliability in newer cars, it's a little interesting, because while there are a lot of cars that are sold that actually are good and reliable. Hi, Shane. And if you're wondering, VCMD Propulsion is my buddy Shane. So that's why when I said, hi, Shane, that's who I'm talking about. What about Thunderbirds? You have Thunderbirds. Yes, I do know. But, it's interesting, because, brand new cars don't seem to have the reliability that they did. Because you can go back to hell, you know what? I think the heyday for the most reliable vehicles, I kind of want to say, was the 90s. Because you had vehicles actually, what he's talking about there, the MN12 platform vehicles with, the Lincoln Mark 8, which, I mean, they had problems with their air suspension, but that was it. But reliability-wise, those motors were fantastic. The Thunderbirds themselves were actually pretty reliable, too. Even with that 3.8, which they did... What? Okay, well, the Model T was never made in the 30s. The last Model T was created in 1927. 1928 through 1930 was the Model A, technically. And then 32, into 31. Then 32, that is what people will say it's a Model A, but it's actually not. I don't know the exact definition of what a 32 technically is. See, and again, the 350 was not made... V8, not 350. Well, the Chevrolet V8s from that time period, from 58 to 72, you would have had the 348, the 409, you would have had the 283, the 3... Actually, was the 327 out yet? It may... No, I don't think so. 327, I think, was 1960. Well, 327, you had... No, the 350 came out, and I think that was 64, 65? To kind of replace the 327, even though they still made it 327 for longer. And, obviously you had your 454, your 396, all that different stuff. And there's a few, but... See, and I love me a 5-liter, don't get me wrong. And the engines themselves are actually very reliable. It's interesting, though, because, my convertible was not reliable, but that wasn't the 302's fault. The 302 was always fine. It was good. The first 302 was garbage, and it would have eventually blown up on me if I didn't swap it out. But when I swapped in that other 302, there was actually a very tired motor. It would still start every time really nice, and like granted, I did put a brand new carb on it and stuff like that. But the one thing is, I think genuinely peak reliability, I want to say, was the 90s, because you had some of the most reliable vehicles ever made in the 90s. Like anything with that Buick 3.8 V6 as an example, most bulletproof thing on the planet. When they put the supercharger on them with their automatics, the automatics could be a little questionable, but the regular, non-supercharged ones is, those were just incredible reliability. Like you even had your GM OBS trucks, which just, some of them with like the 4L60 could be a little bit of an issue, but to be honest, with the 700R4, it was totally fine. And it was just one of those things. I mean, here's the one thing though. Like when you talk about cars in the 60s being fast as heck, yeah, most of them technically were. Like anything with a V8 in the 60s and early 70s, like up to like 72 basically, were actually quite quick cars for the most part. And the one thing is, I wouldn't want to take them up to those speeds though. It's a little sketch, but you can. Just because like the suspensions weren't really designed for those kind of speeds. Like even a Buick Wildcat with a 430 in it from 64, it's not something that I'd want to, do. I mean, like, I've gone fast in my cars, don't get me wrong. Like, my Mustang, I've had that thing up to, let's see, how fast have I actually driven that car up to? About 182 kilometers an hour, which is about 110, 115 miles an hour, which, for that car, that's very fast, because it's an inline-six Fox body. It does not have a lot of power. But that's the other thing, though, too. It's just, like, my cars, my two cars right now are actually quite reliable. I was questioning that with the Capri, but then turns out it just needed an oil change, at least for now. It's still a very reliable car. It starts up every time. Sometimes it takes a couple of attempts, but it starts up. I can drive it. No big deal. And this minor shake that I have, I believe I figured out what the problem is with that. And to be honest, that should be an easy fix. I think it's just down to the brakes. Like the front brake discs are original, and a commenter who is actually very, very helpful in comments a lot of the time, to be honest. I like, if you ever see a Fekiel's MA, they are very knowledgeable, actually, and a lot of the time they actually give really good advice to me. And they actually said that could be a thing. It's quite unlikely, but it could be. But I was looking into that and going, actually, that makes sense. Because, like, the shake is a little bit in the steering wheel, but it comes through the dash and stuff. And, like, through the windshield. And, see, the one thing is, resurfacing the brakes, it's finding a place that'll actually do it, because I don't have a lathe, so I can't do it. I can just get brand new ones, right? It's not that much more. Like, right now, I can't afford it. The brakes are still okay. But basically, like, so they're the original brake discs. So, the thing is, they are a tad warped. I do know that. But again, it stops just fine. It stops better than my Mustang does, to be honest. But that's because it's brand new brakes all around, other than those discs. Because, me and Keith, a couple months ago, we replaced the brake booster, we replaced the master cylinder, we replaced the brake calipers up front, we replaced the shoes out back, and yeah, or actually, we may have left the shoes out back alone, maybe, I don't know, it may have had a good amount of meat back there, but other than that, like, it's pretty good. And I love that car. It's a quite a nice place to be. Um, the outside isn't as nice just because of the rust, but underneath solid. There are a couple of things that I want to address underneath of the car, but it's really not bad. Nothing bad at all. Um, you know, but there definitely is quite a bit of rust repair to do on that car. And other than that, though, it's yeah, it's just one of these things. And those cars are like incredibly reliable, and that's the one thing of I have to tinker with them, but that's fine. If I had a brand new car on here, would any of you be watching this? No. Like, genuinely. Because new cars, you can find a bunch of channels on new cars everywhere. Trying to find a channel that's like mine when playing with these classics and stuff like that, it's kind of harder. Like there's a lot of classic car channels, yes, but of the people actually being like genuine and stuff like that, that's difficult to find. Like I have a couple of those. Don't get me wrong. Like actually, something though I will say, I'm gonna be so as long as it works out for timing and whatever else, and I can actually afford to do this, which I might be able to because Roy said he might actually cover the cost. And so coming up in um, September 10th, I think it is. It's a Sunday. My 81 Mustang might actually be on the track, which is cool. It's not going to be a drag race. It's going to be a circuit track. I'm not sure exactly where. Roy said he would get me the details. I haven't seen those yet, but there's still time, so I'm not too worried about it. And that'd be really fun, and get some content out of that too, and it would be great. I've never had my car around a track, so that'll be a load of fun. But having said that, it's one of these things of, well, what, oh, thank you. I really do appreciate that. And aw, that sucks. It's one of the things of like even the like my convertible. I do miss it, but oddly enough, it's a car that I can still go visit and enjoy whenever I want, and that's the beauty of that car. And I love that about that car. Because there is so many times that like I wouldn't have been able to like I wasn't able to give it the love it deserved because it needed some work, and the work that it needed was just stuff I could not afford. Like it needs a new top, something severe actually. It's getting really bad, so it needs some rust repair, which I did not have the money to do. It needs a few other things as well, like it needs front brake rotors actually because they're warped worse than the Capri's. Let's see what else. I mean, there's a couple of oil leaks too. Those are easy to fix. I think Keith has already fixed those. Maybe I'm not sure. Needs a new power steering pump, which again I just could not afford at the time. I could kind of afford it now, but it's just one of those things. And it's nice of being but so he's gonna be able to give it the love that it deserves, and I will still be able to visit my old car, and I will still be able to drive my old car, because that's the one thing. When I am up there and I have the opportunity to drive a car, I will definitely drive my old girl, 100%. I named her. I have sentimentality to that car. Like it was my '86 Mustang convertible LX. Was a 3.8 automatic car. Now has a 5 liter in it. From an '88 T-Bird. Doesn't produce that much power, but it's one of those things. On the dyno, it only produced 130 horsepower to the wheels. That's it. So, um, that's just one of those things. See, the one thing is that car, because if I ever get enough money and I know that I can actually give it the love and attention that it needs and whatever else, I could potentially buy it back off of him, to be honest. And I know he wouldn't have issues selling me the car back, because it's interesting. Like, it's probably a car that I wouldn't be shocked if it gets back into my possession again at some point. Um, it's just one of those things, and like I miss having a convertible, 100%. But you know, it just was not. It wasn't practical for me. I loved the convertible, but it was also just kind of that car was unreliable. I will fully admit that, because just the way that it broke down on me quite often. Some of the things were just lower rad hose blew off a few times. Had to swap the motor, and the fuel pump, while it didn't fully die, it lost a lot of its efficiency to where it wouldn't actually like run the engine 100%. Like, it would build up enough fuel in the carburetor to actually run the engine, but that was it. So, something that needed to be fixed. It wasn't something that I could fix on the side of the highway, sadly, when it broke down on me. So, this final time. So yeah, it's one of those things, like that. But I don't need it. That's the one thing. Nice. Yeah. See, and that would be a ton of fun. Like, and truthfully, like I had plans for that thing. Like, I wanted to throw on some better heads. I wanted to throw in a cam in it, and I wanted to do all the stuff to it, but I never got the opportunity to. And I mean, it's fine. I'm not really too worried about it. Like Keith will do that to it, I'm sure. And it's just one of those things. But it's fine. And but yeah, like it is interesting though with the reliability of new cars. It just seems to be going downhill, and I don't get. Well, I know why to a degree, but at the same time, sorry, I'm just reading some comments on Facebook here about just on a post that I made about my Capri, actually. But yeah, it's just interesting because, like I said, I want to say that reliability peaked by like 1998. To be honest, like everything was pretty much reliable then. Like you had some kind of iffy cars, but like even like the Ford Escort, that was good. Honda Civic, Toyota Corolla, Toyota Camry, any of the trucks really. I mean, some of the Ford trucks were a little questionable. The Dodge trucks were freaking bulletproof, just about. And like, was there really like? I'm trying to think. Was there really an unreliable vehicle in the '90s? Because even like the BMWs and Mercedes that are now not really as reliable as they used to be, back then were actually really good cars. And it's stuff like that, right? So I it's interesting. Like this whole like argument of this is kind of wild. And while like some brand new vehicles are reliable, they're just not as reliable as they used to be. And that's when I mentioned that old cars are more reliable than new cars. Like, I don't think he was realizing what I meant by that. And to be honest, like, I can. Like, both my cars, I wouldn't hesitate to take across country. I wouldn't. And I seriously doubt they would cause any issues. And if they did, I can fix it on the side of the road. Because it's all mechanical. both cars are purely mechanical, right? It's great. I love that. Um, because I don't like a bunch of sensors. I don't like computers in my cars. I like to be able to, you know, work on it myself, not need a computer degree to do it, and just be happy driving my cars, you know? Because new cars just don't really do much for me. I've driven some fun new cars, don't get me wrong. Like, back when my buddy Cody had his 2020 GT California Special, that thing was great. See, but that's why you don't go to AutoZone, though. Because AutoZone is crap. Like, if you want to actually have a place that stocks old car parts, go to your old mom and pop shops. Go to a Napa. Go to, like, anywhere like that. Because 9 times out of 10, you can find what you need, and if you don't, you can always find parts in an old car. I'll say that's pretty cool. Like, and 52 Chevy pickup. That's actually a really cool truck. I sold one of those. Albeit it was. Actually, I think it was a 54, and it was a GMC. But maybe been a 52, actually. I can't remember. I really can't remember. So long ago. It was like 2 years ago when I sold that thing. It was a 5-ton truck, I want to say it was. Really cool, though. But it's funny, like, the capabilities of a 5-ton truck then versus now. It's wild. Like, that thing had gross vehicle weight max of, like, this is, all the weight that you could actually, like, haul with it was only 11,000 pounds. But it's wild because half-ton trucks can do that now. And that's the one thing of, like, I think that if automakers could actually make proper, reliable vehicles, I think they would. But they just don't anymore. It seems to be that way anyways. And how many Nissans do you hear with broken transmissions because they use a stupid CVT system, which is the worst thing that ever could have been invented. Because if you don't know what a CVT is, so it's called a continuously variable transmission. It doesn't necessarily have, like, proper gearing that you would think, but it's run off of a belt system. And the problem is that belt snaps, and when that belt snaps, it grenades the transmission, and then it costs you about $4,000 to replace said tranny, possibly more. So that's the problem, right? And so many new cars use CVTs. It's not just Nissan. Dodge actually used CVTs in the Dodge Caliber, and I think that's one of the reasons why the Dodge Caliber just was kind of a commercial failure. While it sold decently well, it just did not have the mainstay in the marketplace, and so they got rid of it. You know, and because, like, the Caliber replaced the Neon, and the Neon replaced essentially the K cars, right, of the 80s. Ugh. Ow. Ugh. That hurt. But, it's interesting and it's sad. That's really cool, and actually to have that as your first vehicle is quite neat. And something that's built like that, it's kind of cool, actually. And, like, because that's the one thing. It wasn't as common back then to build trucks out like nowadays, because people always thought of a truck as a utilitarian vehicle. They never thought of it as a race car. That's only a recent sort of deal. Like, yes, there were some race trucks back in the day, but it was not very common. Compared to now, where, yeah, people don't hesitate to build a truck anymore, where they used to back then. And it's kind of cool. you know, and yeah, I mean, well, there was the NASCAR trucks too and stuff like that, but I mean, like, people building them into race cars. It wasn't just a race car series, though, right? Um, and like, there are like, I will say, with some of the more modern stuff, that there are more. There are some interesting things in new cars that I kind of dig to a certain degree, but I still don't want my vehicles completely being run by computers. Because one little issue with that computer, and the whole thing just like grenades itself. You know, you have one little sensor that goes, and your car goes into limp home mode. When at times you look at that module and you realize this shouldn't go into limp home mode because this has nothing to do with the engine controls. Period. You know, it's dumb. It is so dumb. And like, you have TPMS sensors and wheel speed sensors and all this different shit that we don't need, which makes cars over complex and making them kind of unreliable in the end. It's just kind of frustrating, to be honest. If you know, like, I truly think that if you just want reliability, that's all you want. Go get a '90s Camry. You know, if you want practicality, get a '90s Camry wagon. Seriously, you know, because they were just incredible with that V6 and everything. I think it was like a 3 liter, and they produced okay power, and you know, they were great. I actually saw one for sale at Ipple in Edmonton, which is really cool. They didn't want a lot of money for it, actually, and like, to be honest, if I was interested in a vehicle that and it only had like 150,000 kilometers on it too, like, um, you know, like, if I had the money and I was interested in just a basic vehicle that's kind of unique in a way, and you know, it's reliable, I would have bought that in a heartbeat. But it's one of those things, because like, and I like stuff is weird, and a Camry wagon to me is weird because there weren't as many of them built, right? It's like when you see a wagon version of something that, you know, isn't that, you know, that is a common vehicle, but like, the wagon was typically rare. It's kind of cool. Like, as an example, it's interesting because like, there is like this sort of debate too about Fox bodies, and what's hilarious, it's only idiots that debate them because everybody else knows that, you know, what's a Fox body and what isn't. There are some oddities for Fox bodies that only lasted a couple years in that whatever. Like, as an example of that, you can look at the. So obviously, the first Fox body ever produced was the Ford Fairmont slash Mercury Zephyr in 1978. 1979, of course, the Mustang and the Capri come out. By 1982, I believe it was, maybe 83, the Fairmont and the Zephyr went out of production. By 86, the Capri went out of production. However, the Ford LTD from 1981 to 1984 was actually a Fox body. The Cougar was a Fox body. You had the Thunderbird that was the Fox body starting in 1980. You had, honestly, the Lincoln Mark 6, I think, was. The Mark 7 definitely was. And, you know, the rarest Fox body ever built was the 1981. I think they made them in 1982 as well, but maybe it was just 1981. I can't remember. Ford Durango, which was the only factory-approved Fox body pickup truck. They're essentially a Fairmont with a box on the back of it, and with a weird tailgate that has the taillights integrated into the tailgate, so if you have the tailgate down, your taillights wouldn't swivel up or anything, so that was a big problem with them, but, you know. It's something that I never thought of, but honestly, you look at them and you realize it's not really a practical truck. From a reliability and from a fuel economy standpoint, they were. Because they were inline sixes. You know, they had a 200 inline six, they all had C4 automatics, and they all had 7.5 rear ends. You know, it was perfectly reliable. I would love to own one and build it out. Because I do the same things that I've done to my Mustang, to that. Like, but Durangos, they're very rare. There was only 212 of them ever built. Um, but yeah, it's just this whole thing of that, and and it's interesting because like the Fox Body platform, and technically, if you want to get technical, Fox Body is slang because the platform itself is actually the Ford Fox platform. That's what it's called. Um, but and it's interesting, of how many Fox bodies were made, but actually how reliable they were. There were some that were questionable reliability, like especially some of those early turbo cars. The early 3.8s weren't that good, but later on they got them a lot better. And what's interesting, actually, because people don't realize, that the Fox body, if you want to get really, really technical, kind of ran till 2004, because the SN95 slash New Edge was actually a modified Fox body platform. That's why whenever I have driven any of them, I know exactly what they're gonna feel like for the most part. And to me, an SN95 or a New Edge is a more reliable Fox body in my opinion. So, that's just one of those deals. Or I should say more. Well, they are kind of more reliable to a degree, but I should say more stable Fox body. That's what I call them. Because I've driven two New Edges. I've driven one SN95. That SN95 was cool because it was a 5-liter 5-speed. That thing was kick ass, and that's something that I'll get to drive. I just got to text Keith there and see, which is a different friend of mine, Keith, because I have two friends that are named Keith. But anyways, I'd have to get to Calgary and just text him and let him know, and then yeah, I'll get to review that. I should text Paul to see about doing a review of his Cosworth because I think it's fucking cool. But yeah, we'll see. But you know, trying to think if there's anything else I really want to talk about. Not overly, but I think I might end this stream, to be honest. It was one of these things where it's kind of a late night stream. I was kind of bored, and this is one of those things. But anyways, hope you guys did enjoy, and yeah, there should be videos coming out in the next couple of days. I might run out to Olds because there is the auction going in Olds. Check out the vehicles there. There's some really cool shit actually, so we'll see. But yeah, anyways, bye. Pew pew.